This is the Flabbergasted Podcast, where we just can't believe you haven't seen it.
Every episode, we discuss a movie that one of us has seen and the other hasn't.
And sometimes that neither of us have seen.
Follow us on Instagram
At Flabberpod.
and subscribe in your podcast app of choice. I'm your host, Jessica.
I'm your host, Rogge.
Let's get to it.
Welcome back, folks. I am your host, Rogge, here today talking about Spirited with a first-time guest. Not first time from your family, but you're a first-timer, right?
Yeah, this is it.
This is Dan Ray, my friend and colleague, quasi-colleague.
Sure,
Yeah.
very collegial.
Absolutely. We are talking about a Christmas movie. I had never seen Spirited, which is directed by Sean Anders, starring Will Ferrell, Ryan Reynolds, and Octavia Spencer. IMDb describes it as a musical version of Charles Dickens' story of a miserly misanthrope who is taken on a magical journey. I feel like that's selling it short a little bit. There's like the word meta needs to be in there,
Sure,
to some extent, because that I did not realize that it was going to be as meta as it was going into this.
No, it sounds like a retelling of the original in musical fashion or whatever,
Right.
But it isn't really that. It's what has happened 100 and some years hence.
And it's an examination of what the original means and like making the subtext the text and then making the text the subtext, kind
Exactly.
of like inverting it on
Yeah.
purpose.
For sure.
So what is your history with Spirited?
I've seen I want to say maybe 4 times. Happened across it a couple years ago. We travel every other year for Christmas, and the years we travel it's very busy before we leave, getting a lot of things taken care of and all that stuff. So in the years that we're home, we find ourselves with a lot of dead time. And so a couple years ago, we just thought, hey, there's got to be some newer Christmas holiday type shows, movies, whatever that are out. Let's see if
Healthy perspective.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't have to just be White Christmas, It's a Wonderful Life. Like we can, actively try to modernize a little bit and create new traditions.
Yeah, and some other friends had made some suggestions of some things, a few movies that we saw, and I'm like, yeah, okay, and then this one I hadn't talked to anybody who had seen it. Knew about it. What you just read is a retelling of the Dickens classic, which I've seen pretty much every version, from the Muppets to the old timies to the, Scrooged and all the different retellings of the original story. So I thought, well, if they got a new one out, I probably better see it. Also, I think that same year we saw the movie that came out that was sort of supposed to be documentary of the story was about Dickens himself and when he wrote it, and the fact that he pretty much had to fund it entirely on its own, but it certainly has changed the way we, culture has celebrated Christmas in the wake of that particular story.
Absolutely.
So we saw that, and then we saw this was available, and thought, well, let's just to round it out, we got to take a look at it. Disclaimer: I've seen Will Ferrell in several things, most of which I don't much care for. I feel all my students every year think of me as Grinch, Scrooge combined, because I just don't care for the movie Elf.
Yeah,
and I don't dislike the movie. I just don't like the elf.
Yeah,
it's too over the top for me.
It is. Yeah. You're kind of not your movies aren't like just something that you're sitting down 3 times a week. And
No, I'm so much more of a nonfiction guy. If I'm going to read, I want to read nonfiction. I have several fiction authors that I read all of their stuff, but there's only a few, and I don't really read anything else. Just those guys. Everything else I read is nonfiction. There's so much great nonfiction out there. There's so many real stories that are so much better than anything people are dreaming up that I kind of stick to that. But I also realize that anything that is a good story that I've heard versions of or adaptations of, or seen different parts of there are some of those that I'm really interested in all of the versions of. And A Christmas Story or A Christmas Carol is one. Another one is all the Wizard of Oz stuff.
I was going to say.
Yeah. Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
Those kinds of things. So I'm a very narrow movie goer. There's a whole bunch of stuff I just let slide. I just let go by because it just doesn't ping in my soul when I hear about it or whatever. But these ones that I know, I'm driven to see more of.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm more of an omnivore, I think, in general with movies, but comedies specifically, I mean, our listeners will know it's just not, none of my top 10 are like, Step Brothers or like, just like all my students can't believe you haven't seen this, you haven't seen that. I just didn't grow up watching comedies. So I was a little like, okay, here we go. It's the Christmas Carol, but it's funny. Like Ryan Reynolds and Will Ferrell, definitely your mileage may vary with those guys.
Sure.
I grew up, one of my buddies really liked Talladega Nights. And so that was the one Will Ferrell movie that I watched maybe once or twice. And I was like, okay, and Sacha Baron Cohen, but I never saw Step Brothers or like a lot of the other stuff. So, and I also don't necessarily have a particular like latch on to the Christmas Carol story the way that you do. I don't mind it. I saw Muppet for the first time 2 years ago. I don't really know what my text would have been with Christmas Carol, I guess the Scrooge McDuck kind of one. Yeah. I've not seen the Bill Murray. Is that Scrooged?
Yes.
Okay, I've not seen that.
Yeah.
So
there was a Jim Carrey version a few years ago.
It was
partially animated. I mean, it's animated, but it's and because I love the story so much, I even like that one. And I just saw a list recently of the 100 best Christmas movies of all time or whatever. And that version of A Christmas Carol didn't even make the top 100.
Of the top Christmas movies.
I'm like, okay, I pretty well liked that one, but it was not well received.
That one leaned into the scary sort of, like there was a kind of an extended Christmas future, like...
Yeah.
Mystical sort of aspect of it.
Yeah, I think that was some creative team got together and tried to say, all right, what if we brought in Jim Carrey and we did A Christmas Carol in the same vein as Polar Express, and that technology and all that stuff. And
Polar Express is right in that uncanny valley of like you either buy like their faces and movement and stuff, or it kind of like bothers you.
Yeah, and I'm not a Polar Express fan either. I love Tom Hanks, but there's just something about the way that story is told, and maybe the some of the production of it that it didn't catch me.
Yeah.
So
same thing. So I sat down last night and watched Spirited. We go to pull it up on Apple TV, which we are, Apple, you're not listening, logged in with Jeremy and Jessica's account, typically. And we go to pull it up and it's like, oh, what's your username? What's your password? Okay, we'll send you a notification. And they're out on a cruise as we record this from their house. And so Rachel and I are going, oh, geez, we can't shoot this is on Apple TV. We can't log in on both the TVs. So we pull it up on Amazon. Like, okay, it's $4 to rent. And it's like, well, Dan loves this movie. I mean, it's $8 to buy. So we go to click on buy and it says that it's actually going to be $1.50 because of all the times, sometimes on Amazon you click like, oh, send it 2 days later and send me a $1 promotional credit for, where does that money go? You never see that cash to like cash out or anything, but it goes to these purchases that we make once every 3 years to actually buy a movie. So we are now the proud owners of Spirited on Amazon Prime.
For $1.50.
For $1.50.
Awesome.
Out of pocket. Yeah. I mean, that's a popcorn at the basketball game last night.
Yeah, if you can throw in another 50 cents.
Yeah. This stars Will Ferrell, Ryan Reynolds, we already talked about. Octavia Spencer, I just didn't realize before booting it up. And then kind of early on, I was like, well, she's not the other star. It's this... it's the Ghost of Christmas Past. She's in the first few scenes and is like has a lot of lines, and then it really drops off hard.
Sure,
there's like a cliff that we hit with the Ghost of Christmas Past. And I didn't pull up her name. There were some seams in the beginning for me But I mean, just to skip to the end a little bit here, by the end, I came around. I really came around on the meta quality, because I was like, this is about, it's just a modern Ryan Reynolds is a smarmy Scrooge. Like, okay, I got it. And then it turns out it wasn't that. And the Will Ferrell emotional arc doesn't carry a ton of water for me. Mm-hmm. I'm not seeing it on his face.
Sure.
And the background of him saying good afternoon is just like, so he's terrible, but he feels bad about it. But like, it wasn't connecting yet. But I think Ryan Reynolds does a good job here.
Yes.
Of giving you a bit and then pulling it back and a bit more with some of with the hospital scene. And they do the interesting thing where the hospital scene comes in and gets aborted and then they come back to it in a way that I was surprised how impressed I was. Not that he's winning an Oscar, but I really did. Every time we went to the Will Ferrell plot line, I was like, I don't just go back to the normal, like this man who you've demonstrated to me is terrible, has something in his heart where he actually feels bad and gets redemption. Like, and so I think that speaks to the power of the Christmas Carol tale of the original Scrooge, is that that's the through line that I wanted to follow.
Sure.
But we spend a lot of time on, I was labeled unredeemable, and does that, but I thought I was redeemed, but then really was I? Right. And so is that part of the plot? Does that add a lot for you to the Christmas Carol story?
Yeah, it's interesting because there's a big flashback scene, 2/3, 3/4 of the way through the movie, where they're back in early Victorian England.
Yeah, we call it Dickensian England, right?
Yeah, very much Dickensian England. And it's revealed at that point that Scrooge lived 3 weeks past Christmas, and reveals that the leading cause of death in that time period was January.
One of my favorite lines.
and so, while it's kind of a joke and kind of it's a bit as part of that, it does reveal that Ebenezer Scrooge in the afterlife then has to wonder, would that redemption have lasted had he lived longer? And I think he fully believed that it would have, but there's doubt. And that doubt basically fuels this whole film, because...
and certainly the rest of it from there. It's a snowball, yeah.
Sure. And so Ryan Reynolds' character, very Scrooge-like, also considered unredeemable, but for very different reasons. Maybe because of the culture, you think of Scrooge as being all about just acquiring money for
Scrooge's greed.
Yeah, for the purpose of just acquiring money. He had no plans to do anything with it. No, he's just acquiring money to acquire money.
Ryan Reynolds is more cynicism than greed. I think driving.
Yeah, and is he trying to acquire power? Is he trying to acquire status as in areas of influence? Is he just part of the thing for me is I feel like Ryan Reynolds' character, he's just trying to be smarter than everybody else in the room. I can get you to do the things that you don't want to do, but make you feel like you do want to do it because I'm smarter than you.
Yeah, and that matters now, even though it didn't matter as much when I was a kid. So it's the power because of the security that power grants you, an emotional and just living situation security that he clearly didn't have.
Correct.
And we see just one pretty effective flashback scene. Those Ryan Reynolds flashback scenes are good. I mean, the dogs, the Sparky stuff is really effective.
Yes.
I think.
Yeah.
And that tells you all you need to know about, okay, how do you grow up, even if you're smart, to be this cynical and wanting to control, to puppet master everything and feel like you understand what makes people tick. I think that's his self-image, is the person that knows exactly how to push every button because I've seen the worst of human behavior and humanity in my own mom.
Yeah, and I know what buttons she pushed, and I know the emotional response that it elicited from me.
Yeah,
and so now I can turn that on virtually anybody.
Yeah, and in order to almost to not justify, but in order to redeem, if you want to use that phrasing, that fact that happened to me, I have to turn that into a silver lining. Okay. Sure. So because he says, well, this was the best Christmas present anyone gave me, not the worst. And so he's compartmentalizing, he's pushing down his emotions about that situation by spinning, he can spin it, Yeah. And so that makes it okay. It makes it okay that it happened.
Yeah. And he almost sees that as an essential part of who he is and how he became who he is. And the viewer, I think, feels the same way, but the viewer feels sorry for him as opposed to he's trying to feel justified and this is how I need to be. You know, not just how I want to be. This is how I need to be.
Or at the very least, he wants us to think that he feels that way.
Of course,
because he does not. Deep down, right. as it shows later when we get to the hospital scenes, he knows,
of course.
And so it's important, but it's important to him that he has this facade that he commits for the rest of his life to, nope, it's just about the control. It's just about the power to try to get no one to peek behind the curtain. Wizard of Oz. We're back to Wizard of Oz.
Yeah. It's funny how that's the thing about stories is they're pretty interwoven and there's major themes that show up over and over.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I just like the development. I agree with you. It's a little slow in the beginning because they're so much exposition to understand
the mechanics of what world we're living in.
Yeah, and I don't know that there's a way to shortcut any of that because you really do need most of that background information by the time you get to the end.
If he's going to be running back into the afterlife world and we have a breach and you need to understand what those stakes are and why.
Exactly. Yeah. Octavius plays Marley.
Octavia Spencer is the love interest. Is the what's her? Oh shoot, Spencer, Kim Spencer, Kim something.
Yeah, I believe that's correct.
Oh no, Octavia Spencer is her last name.
Yeah,
Kimberly.
Yeah, Kimberly
something.
The gentleman that plays, and while I do like the movie, I'm not the guy who reads all the credits and learns all the backgrounds.
His name is Patrick something because I was like, is that a de-aged Patrick Stewart?
No,
it's not. It's Patrick Page.
Yeah, who's got many credits on Broadway.
Okay,
very well known Broadway actor. I recognize his face.
Yeah,
not into the names part of it. Anyway, I felt like his performance is as Jacob Marley is quite anchoring. It just he does such a great job, and again, all the stage credits that he has, good to get him on the silver screen or home screen, whatever.
Yeah,
I don't think this was released in theaters.
No, it was straight to
streaming or
Apple
whatever.
Original or whatever they call it.
And we did look up the budget.
Did you
recently? And I think it was a $75 million production.
Yeah.
And if you see it, you're like, yeah, they didn't throw a lot of that away. That was that was pretty well spent in these effects.
There's CG. There's just big sets with lots of dancers and practical effects too.
Yeah, it's almost the. You see this and you wish more movies were made this way. In terms of the variety of different technologies and effects that they use. It's quite well done.
Yeah, I think it's pretty successful. That kind of gets into discussing the musical aspect. Because I think musical is a term that can mean a few different things.
Sure.
It's a movie that has like a couple of set pieces in it, but then this is like to me a capital M musical. Like I was like, oh, Dan loves musicals. Like this is, they're just, we're expositioning through song. It is like sort of every 6 minutes for a while. Like we've got another big number and we're doing the full dancing, but in the way that it's like, there's no one in the world is questioning that this has happened until the good afternoon. He does a little bit about like, did you practice that? They all just were following us. How did they all know?
yeah, it does make fun of itself in a couple places.
Yeah. And the elf costume.
Yeah.
You look like an idiot.
I'm also quite drawn to movies that don't take themselves too terribly seriously.
Yeah.
My other in that genre I think of is The Mummy. Brendan Fraser's The Mummy. But we don't want to get too far flung there.
Well, it won't shock you to learn that I've not seen The Mummy because I'm drawn to movies that take themselves very seriously.
and of all the things that you and I overlap, there's just interests and abilities and all that stuff. I think we're about as far apart on movies, as anything there could possibly
Except
be.
Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
Love Lord of the Rings.
Yeah,
which is kind of taking itself real seriously.
Sure. Yeah, and it's not that I can't enjoy a movie.
No, I know.
It's just I'm just drawn to movies that don't go too far, and so anyway, back to
it's a real musical.
Yeah.
And I chafed a little bit on, we've got these 3 stars in the musical. I mean, the 3 top billing are Ryan Reynolds and Will Ferrell and Octavia Spencer. And like none of them can really sing. And so it's trying to hide it, and we're auto-tuning just a little bit, and we're kind of giving them the patter song type of stuff.
Yeah.
But they're game for it. I mean, they're trying. They're not like hiding behind anything, which I appreciate. Yeah,
and while I agree with you, none of them are trained singers or anything.
Yeah, really, capital R, really sing. Yeah.
I was a little more impressed with Ryan and with Will, maybe because they can carry a tune. They aren't, it's not polished. But they can harmonize a little bit with one another.
Yeah,
and
it was on tune. I mean, you want, in an ideal world, I mean, like some more body behind it or whatever.
Sure.
But
I mean, I also just last week saw Phantom of the Opera on stage, and I mean, those people can sing.
Yeah, those people can sing.
That's the difference is trained and polished versus some natural talent that never really that they spent their time doing other things. Spent their time polishing other parts of their persona as performers.
And Ryan Reynolds can dance.
Yeah, more than you would think.
Yes.
Yeah, and so yeah, there's some. I think part of the thing that I really enjoyed about it was the surprise of how they tied the original into an updated kind of continuation sequel kind of a deal. How these performances by Ryan Reynolds specifically, Will Ferrell a little bit, others in the cast were just a little surprising. We haven't talked about the Ghost of Christmas Future.
With Tracy Morgan. I did. Yeah, I mean, Tracy Morgan is very funny, like on 30 Rock. But the whole joke, he's just like, yep, it's Tracy Morgan before she becomes Christmas present. Do we need to explain why that's funny? Nope. That's just, we got it. Understood that's the joke.
That is the joke.
And because, I mean, they're right. That's always been a little bit, if A Christmas Carol, the original story doesn't, the movies don't always like hit me, being the number one thing that hits me. Part of it is you go to the graveyard and he points, and so that doesn't. I'm like, yep, people die. Like I'm aware of more like how mortality works and that I'm going to die and those things. So that's supposed to be the kicker, like they call it. Well, the kicker is the past, and then it goes into the future or whatever. Yeah, that kicker aspect has never totally like shaken me the way I think it's supposed to. Yeah. And so that poking fun at the fact that like, well, he's pointing really seriously, but all he's doing is pointing. That aspect I did appreciate, that we can make light of that.
Sure.
But then he does a good job with the vigil or the viewing of the kid that was, I mean, essentially cyberbullied, I guess you would call it. Because this was pointed out and all that kind of stuff. And I think that kid is pretty good. Ren is pretty effective. I like her. I like her performance. Yeah. Carrie, I think, is really, really good too. Yeah. Both as a really young, like a girl, and then the adult Carrie in the hospital bed and those kinds of things.
Yeah. And the brother, who's kind of portrayed as kind of a throwaway character, just this other guy who happens to be you know, for better, for worse, for luck or for misfortune, whichever, the third of the siblings and kind of no redemptive qualities or whatever, turns out to be really the hero in the show.
Yeah, he's sort of the Bob Cratchit analog, like not in any literal sense, but when you back up, it's like the person that is, oh no, it's not Bob Cratchit. It's, what's the nephew's name from the original? Who is just he's willing to embrace Scrooge every time, and there's no animosity. There's no, you gotta apologize correctly for all the things you did. It's just, oh, we're fine. You're finally hugging me. Great. Yeah. I'm here for the hug.
Yeah. Goes through life, taking what life hands him and trying to do the best he can with the responsibilities he's been given. And has no training and no experience to draw on that helps him. And he doesn't let that deter him. He just keeps going. He keeps trying to honor his sister and be protective and loving to the sister's daughter.
I think the movie does a good job of portraying him as all of that in limited scenes. And despite the fact that Ryan Reynolds at one point says, well, you know, I pay for all of that, right? Did she get the phone? Did she get this trip or whatever? And all the characters and us are immediately like, you're so wildly misunderstanding the point of what parenting is.
Exactly. Yeah. And
which he can be forgiven for based on the way he grew up, and having someone pay for it would have been great, you know?
Right. Yeah. Feels like he's doing so much more for his niece than any adult in his life ever did for him.
Yeah.
And again, has entirely missed what
it's
all about. Yeah.
He took a lesson,
right,
and not an unfair one, but he had choices of which lesson to take and picked the wrong one.
Yeah. And but he gets a chance to write that.
Absolutely, so, yeah. Before we get to kind of the ending and how we feel like things wrapped up, a couple of favorite quotes and just things that we noticed. Rachel said, when I started typing a note about like they're doing a good job of making it seem like the leads can sing, and Rachel, unprompted, I'm just typing that. Rachel says, "This sounds like The Greatest Showman." Like it's a similar quality of spoken exposition song, and Hugh Jackman can sing better than these guys can, but I wonder if I didn't look into composers or songwriters or anything, if there's any kind of commonality, but I know that that's a movie that I feel like I remember you enjoying a few years ago as well. Do you see like a thread between those?
I don't know that
musicality standpoint.
Yeah, I don't know that I would have picked that out, but now that you asked me the question, I think it's reasonable to say that there's some overlap for sure. Using song to tell a story, also not just those those two stories, but maybe these two stories rely a little more on that than sometimes in other musicals.
And we get lots of background dancers who are really going for it, I think, in both movies.
Sure. Yeah. And some very talented people in the wings, in the background. Very easy to lose focus on the headliners and watch the background, because that's where the talent really is. Here's
some eye candy. Great. I mean, Will Ferrell's probably like, get more of them in. Here we go. If I can just kind of stand there and stay in my lane.
Yeah. So
that's pretty good.
Yeah. A lot of, I did watch the credits, maybe the most recent time I watched it, not so much for specific names necessarily as just how many people are involved.
Yeah.
And, like I said, there's a very large production for an Apple original or whatever, and a lot of people really got a chance to strut their stuff. And
Rachel got really excited. She said, "That's so and so," and I was like, "This is not a name that's ringing with me." She says, "That's Taylor Swift's background dancer, he stands on the right," or whatever. She knew his name and kind of like a little bit about him, and she's looking it up. She's like, I was right. Like she recognized him and felt like he got a chance to shine there, which she was excited about. I think my favorite line from the whole movie is when you go into the Dickensian flashback, and before they've changed clothes, that we're watching the Tiny Tim or whatever doorstep interaction. And he says, I think I wrote it down. I hope I got it correct. He said, oh, shoot. Where's the quote? Me and my father work at the mill. And it's just such a throwaway line. Like he just glossed right over and no one addresses that it's a little kid on crutches. That's like, it's not, you took away my dad's job. It's you took away our job because an 8-year-old was working at the mill at the time. Yeah. And he says something like, it was still really a profitable venture or something like that. And you shut it down anyway. And so it does they're like, okay, we get one scene and maybe even 2/3 of a scene total to give a background of how terrible Scrooge was, because then we're going to spend, frankly, too long doing a song about the phrase good afternoon, in my opinion. I mean, of the song, that's the number one. It's not a bad song, but like minute 5 of it, I was like, we're still doing good afternoon. Like this was are they going for an Oscar here? Like for best original song or something? Yeah.
I love the idea.
Yes.
And in that particular extra 3 minutes that they didn't need of that is kind of the 3 minutes of this particular movie that I don't like about all of Will Ferrell's stuff.
Yes.
It just goes too far. You know, you found this bit, let me enjoy it. Now give me a new one. You know? And
leave me wanting a little bit of the bit.
Yeah.
Just crystallize it.
Yeah. The idea of always leave them wanting more. I feel like too often Will Ferrell goes the other way. Never let him want any more.
Yeah. And there's people out there that want to watch all of the deleted scene outtake bloopers of every improv that he does on the same joke from all of his movies. And that's just not us.
No, not, again, you know, I liked, are there 40 other actors out there that could have easily done what Will Ferrell did in this show? And the answer is maybe, but he and Ryan Reynolds do have some chemistry, some buddy charisma kind of stuff going on. They
acknowledge. Sure. They're like, I feel like we're becoming friends here.
And, but they, the story itself, I feel like is pretty well written. It does show the depth of both characters more than maybe, you know, you got to get all the way to the end of A Christmas Carol before you see any depth of character in Ebenezer Scrooge. Because this is written differently, you know Scrooge's depth of character kind of early on, and they don't make you wait nearly as long to start to see the chinks in the armor for the Ryan Reynolds character. So.
Yeah, I agree about the writing and sort of the pacing of the whole thing, because it's if you're going to do a take on A Christmas Carol, I think a modern, cynical, how would like a really bright man who's cynical actually respond to this? Mm-hmm. He's like, it's really good when Marley shows up and he goes, wait, Marley, okay, this is a Christmas Carol. Okay, I know what all the steps are then. Yeah. Like, of course he's seen A Christmas Carol. Let's not pretend that story doesn't exist in this world.
Sure, yeah. No,
it's interesting. And so that means he knows, okay, I know what the stakes are of each individual scene. I'm not just like wowed in the same way that Scrooge is in the original writing, who's never experienced something supernatural, who's never watched a movie. I mean, that would have been an out-of-body experience for him.
Sure.
He's like, yeah, these people can't see me. There's no stakes or consequences. I can do whatever I want while I'm in here. I don't have to listen to you. I wish that they had expounded a little more on Scrooge's powers during flashbacks and Christmas present stuff. Like when he goes, we've got a runner, and then every door Ryan Reynolds opens just loops him right back into the same room and stuff like that. That's good.
Yeah.
That kind of him having that power, he needs to be able to grab him. It took me a little bit out of my suspension of disbelief. I'm supposed to say, okay, there's this afterlife with a whole legitimate production of, we do the research and we set up all of these things, but we didn't consider what if he runs the other way? Like we have no plan for this.
Right.
And then he's just diving in and we don't have any kind of sonic barrier that stops him from doing that, which is for plot reasons. We want him to emphasize how much he wants to know about Scrooge's backstory because that needs to start ramping up. But it would have been cool if he had, because of course his present is gigantic in some of the in some productions.
Sure.
And so if he can grow and reach out his hand and scoop him up, or like just do something to force him to confront.
Right.
Which they purposely don't do it, because later the point is he needs to be ready to and willing to confront it of his own volition, because that's actually more meaningful and impactful for his journey. So I get it. But at the time I'm like, you can't just let him run away. Like I want to portray you as strong and powerful and meaningful, and not kind of ineffectual if like as soon as the kayfabe is broken, of like once he knows it's a ghost and he knows all the rules, he shouldn't be. You should. Yeah, I almost wanted it to be a Truman Show situation. At the very end, it was this is a simulation within a simulation, and we set this whole thing up in this format of letting you think that you were getting the upper hand and being smarter, but we knew this was going to go. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like the same way, like a double, triple cross sort of thing.
Yeah. No, that could have been a
or
later.
that they were redeeming Scrooge on purpose or something.
Yeah, it's a device I wonder if they considered.
I'm sure. Yeah.
And it's another thing that I like about the idea of storytelling. Something as complex as what they were trying to do here is, how long did they work on this script? This looks like the kind of thing that maybe was years in a computer, tweaking this, and we started down this road and we don't like that road, so we're going to go back to this point and we're going to try a different route.
Yeah.
And I would be interested to know a little bit about the writing and how that all came together.
How do you feel about the end? So we get Will Ferrell is back and Ryan Reynolds is the new Ghost of Christmas Present because he sacrifices himself by pushing Will from in front of a bus. But that's sort of the second ending. We had a fake out ending at the ice rink,
right.
From my perspective, is what that was. Will's looking around like, when are they going to walk in and tell you how redeemed you are? And you stopped her from posting it, and that was the climax we were building to. And then Will runs away because this is giving him existential doubt about what his role was in the whole thing, I guess.
Yeah, and what was my redemptive, how real and how long lasting, how permanent was my redemption if I can't even see this one to completion or whatever.
He's finding his value in the change he's able to affect in other people's lives.
Exactly. That's become his purpose. And now all of a sudden his purpose is threatened. And
only insofar as that is quantifiable. Right?
Sure.
Once he sees it only really matters to him from the very beginning when he sees that statue come up on the wall.
Right.
If you don't get that moment, then he's like, well, what was it all for?
Right. And
Ryan's trying to show him that shades of gray.
Right.
He's like, yes, this was, I stopped her from doing this and I felt bad about that. But in 3 weeks, it's only going to last so long before I start rationalizing things.
Right.
And that's a real cynical take on A Christmas Carol.
Yeah, it very much is. And yet, very process oriented because, so much of storytelling is beginning, middle, end. And the reader or the observer of the story is left with the end for perpetuity. But no story ends. There's always the next day, there's always next year, there's always next whatever. Part of what I like about this particular story is it does show you the development of what's happened over 100 and some years, up till modern times and all that stuff. And so you recognize the process. You recognize that these ghosts have made a little, it's not really a business because they're not collecting money or anything, but it's their yearly purpose to pick a bad guy, a person who is hard to live with or hard to be around or whatever, and give them a redemptive situation. I like that idea. And then so you get to the end of this and Ryan Reynolds is like, that's not how this works.
People switches to just be flipped.
Yeah, you changed my perspective in this situation, and I'm grateful for that. But will that change my perspective next month? Will that change my perspective the next time somebody calls me and says, "Hey, can you come talk to my group about new sales tactics that probably are questionable, but we don't really care about that as long as we sell what we sell more of what we're selling, of what we're making. And so in some ways, the Ryan Reynolds character was painted into a corner that the only lasting way for his change to be permanent was for him to not have 3 weeks from now.
Yeah.
And so they get in the street, and Will Ferrell's in front of a bus, and Ryan Reynolds recognizes the goodness that Scrooge actually has and wants to preserve that. So he throws him out of the way, and the bus stops an inch from Ryan Reynolds, at least momentarily. And so, yeah, in the epilogue, then he becomes Scrooge gets a second chance at living, and takes up with Kim and has some kids, and Ryan Reynolds takes his place as the Ghost of Christmas Present, and they are ramping up production. Ryan Reynolds is bringing his modernization skills and modernization point of view to this longstanding idea, and
which I think was logical. I mean, he's going to come in, he's going to spin up. He's the perfect guy for that. They'd painted him, that character, as perfect guy for that position. There's no reason they should be doing one per year.
Right. Yeah.
If they have this technology.
Yeah. They got opportunities to do a couple dozen if they want to. Yeah. So
I will say I was fully confused by the time we see Will Ferrell and Kim living in that house. It's like they had kids. I mean, Will Ferrell is 60? I mean, how old is Will Ferrell in real life? I just looked up. Octavia Spencer in 2022 was 52.
Okay.
They didn't have two little mixed kids. Did they adopt those two kids?
It's hard to say. I mean, so from the scene in the street, when his sister comes and gets him and takes him to the afterlife or whatever, to the next scene is a span of time of around 10 or 12 years, I think. I don't know if it says it someplace. I don't know if it's written in there somewhere, but you get the impression that we've skipped ahead in time a number of years. So,
and his hair's white and he's got more wrinkles and stuff.
Yeah. So if you want to believe that they could have children, and Ebenezer Scrooge is hundreds of years old at this point. Kim, they don't really say anything about her age in the show or whatever, but she's obviously a woman,
who's an appropriate dating age for the Will Ferrell character.
Exactly.
Yeah. Which is a generation above Ryan Reynolds. I mean, it's not a full generation. I mean, close to it.
Yeah.
Is what's supposed to be portrayed. I mean, Ryan Reynolds is probably in his 40s, I assume.
Yeah.
And looks great.
Yeah.
For being in his 40s.
Yeah. So, yeah, whether the children are adopted or whether the children are supposedly some sort of miracle, progeny of some sort, they don't really talk about it or whatever. It's a chance for Will Ferrell to do his bit of the get off the shed bit, and a chance to kind of wrap up, Scrooge. Will Ferrell is now the consultant for, hey, we've run into this one that seems unredeemable. Can you take a look at this full file and give me some advice or whatever? I like that idea of Ryan Reynolds recognizes the idea of mentoring, and here's a guy who's got a ton of experience doing this. Let me see what he thinks. Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. There's so many threads of themes that you can pick out and say that that's a relevant question to all of this. I mean, I think it's about the concept of changing and being a better person. Sure. But then is anyone unredeemable? Is there such thing as absolute good and bad, right? Truth and lies. I mean, that's the underlying question of many movies. Sure. And there's fulfillment in where you're deriving your purpose. Yes. Because we see, like you said, there's an afterlife and they're not making money, but this is what they're doing because they care about it. And it's an interesting perspective. There's people out there that would say, well, you don't have to get your purpose ultimately from a job. I mean, that's modern America that insists that you are who you are because of what job you have, and people chafe against that. And so there's that's kind of interesting. We see a little bit of that in Will Ferrell. Do I retire? Do I not? Right. Why wouldn't he really? Other than that, they don't have a good backup Christmas present type of thing. So,
well, and then the question becomes, what do you retire to?
yes.
In the afterlife, you're going to stop doing this thing that you've done for 100 years or whatever it is, and now you're going to retire to something else. What will that be? And
because then he's a person again, and then he is going to presumably die again.
Exactly.
And then go back to being what age,
Yeah.
There's some pundits of fantasy, the stories that I am familiar with and listen to and watch and stuff. There's people that talk about the importance of having consistency. If you're going to have magic in your story, you need to follow the rules of the magic that you're laying down, right? It's very frustrating in fantasy novels where you get to the end of it and the good guy wins from some completely unknown, brand new source of magic, or by just overcoming it by trying harder, or whatever. There's just a little bit of fulfillment that isn't there from the viewer's perspective, I think. And there's a tiny bit of that of like, okay, so Will Ferrell's how did we age? Scrooge was older than him when he died, and then he de-aged when he became Ghost Christmas Present, and then he's aging again. He's going to die again. And that's just me. Like that's how I am viewing the story. Like I would like, how do I get in the weeds of like how this works?
Yeah.
And she's bringing him coffee and is in HR. Like, what is that? Is there a jail like in this afterlife world? Like, can he get fired or,
Yeah.
That's sort of like what you, in your Wizard of Oz, like stuff that you've written is like, what's the nitty gritty of like actually how these things would play out? And I think there's a certain mind that likes to delve into those kinds of questions too.
Yeah, I agree. I think that, is it America? Is it just Earth culture or whatever that we have been in this product kind of a point of view? How do we get to the end? What's the end of this or whatever? And I think maybe in the last part of a generation, maybe starting to see people starting to focus more on the process. And stories themselves are lend to them this idea of we need a product, we need an end, we need a stopping point. Because what if you didn't? How does that work if you don't have a stopping point? But that's where hooking new stories to old stories kind of starts to celebrate the process of that, or the takes at least a look at what's the process that's happened here, and oh yeah, that was the end of that story, but it wasn't really. There was still more things happen next, etc.
Yeah, how many people read A Christmas Carol within 10 years of it coming out and were like, oh, Mama, what's the next? What about Scrooge on New Year's? What could the next thing have been?
Yeah.
I'm sure hundreds of thousands of dads have made up little stories. Oh, I'm sure Scrooge, and then can tell another little bedtime story.
Yeah, and you're eventually telling stories about Tiny Tim, and
and he grows up hopefully.
Yeah.
Every January has got to be. It's a question mark for Tiny Tim there for a while.
Sure, probably grew up to be Churchill or something. I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. Any other favorite scenes or topics you wanted to hit before we? I
don't think so. I think we hit most of them. In addition to the elaborate sets and the elaborate process of the film itself, I thought there were moments where it was maybe award consideration for costuming, especially some of the modern scenes, and especially the Dickensian in England. I thought they did such a great job with all that, and we didn't say this earlier, but I do some designing and building of sets for theater stuff, and so those kinds of things really catch my eye when they go big and do a good job with that part of it too. So
yeah, absolutely. I think the design is sharp. It's kind of that Ryan Reynolds fast-paced, like ball and shell game a little bit. Mm-hmm. I'm sure there's seams if they never give us enough time to find any seams in anything, but it's glossy and it's slick for sure.
Yeah. Nice work. And we talked about the fact that you and I are pretty don't share a lot of overlap on on what we like or appreciate about movies. For me, it's just, am I glad I spent the 2 hours?
Yeah.
Am I glad I sat and would I consider watching it again? And there are very, very few films that I will watch again.
Right.
But I've seen this one about 4 times. So
that's a ringing endorsement. Coming from Dan Ray.
Yeah. There are a handful of movies that I've seen multiple times, and this has made it onto that list. So
yeah. Right now, my Christmas list is just It's a Wonderful Life. For years, it was just It's a Wonderful Life. And then we've added White Christmas in the last 4 years, probably.
Okay.
Which was 4 years ago, was the first time I'd seen it. I would be happy to watch Muppet Christmas Carol more often than I currently do.
Yeah.
Having loved it 2 years ago. I haven't seen it again since. And I could see every other year this kind of being in the rotation for me. And maybe Rachel has to stay awake for one of them. And she's like, oh, I like this and I want to see how it ends or something like that. But yeah, I wouldn't be opposed to being in the spirit. I couldn't show it to my students. There's just, I think, honestly, a little bit of an unnecessary amount of cursing, like especially early on.
Yeah.
They're just throwing it into songs just to be, this is a little bit of an edgier Will Ferrell thing.
Yeah. Sometimes it gives them the extra syllable they need for the rhyme scheme or whatever, Yeah.
I don't think thematically it's like that wildly inappropriate, but I think it doesn't quite reach the barrier if I could show it to students, but I would love otherwise. Yeah. It would be great. And I've done Muppet Christmas Carol, and so I guess I'll just keep doing that.
Yeah. We said the Jim Carrey one is not bad. Scrooged might be a little, might be a little too far out there for a classroom. But no, if I'm showing Christmas movies to my students, I stick with the original Grinch, Boris Karloff, and the original Peanuts. Merry Christmas, Charlie Brown. Those are the two that they're the two I can watch 5 times a day, one day a year.
Yeah, and it doesn't bother you too much.
Yeah.
Well, we're so happy to have had you on for your maiden voyage on Flabbergasted. Folks, if you've got strong feelings about what your favorite adaptation of Charles Dickens' Christmas Carol is, and if there's a different one that interrogates the story more in a meta way, I would be shocked and awed if you find something that goes much deeper than this one. We'd love to hear from you on all of our social media platforms. Follow us on Instagram and like and subscribe on Spotify and YouTube and all those things. And we appreciate your following. We hope you have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. And we will see you again next time. Thank you, Dan.
It's fun to be here.